Voltaire, have we heard of Voltaire? Voltaire's real name was Francois-Marie Arouet, but we're going to keep it simple here. Voltaire was the pen name that he used, Monsieur de Voltaire. And so Voltaire, we see, is living mostly in the 18th century now, so we're coming forward in time. In the 18th century, 300 years ago, roughly 400 years ago, he was a young man. He studied with the Jesuits, then traveled to England where he read Locke and Newton. He said that Locke and Newton would have been persecuted in France. They would have been imprisoned in Rome. They would have been burned in Lisbon. Burned in Lisbon? Oh, Portugal, Spain, that was where the Inquisition was. Interesting. Good thing Newton and Locke weren't in Spain at the time, huh? Voltaire was not a profound philosopher or physicist, but he was witty. Oh man, he could tear into people and make you laugh at people, about other people more than anyone back at that time. He was vain, cynical, revengeful. He only allowed for one argument for God's existence. There's only one way that we can prove that God exists, and that is from final causality. Simply meaning that if we trace everything back, okay, Father Jamie had to come from somewhere. Oh, he came from his parents. Where did his parents come from? Oh, they came from their parents, etc. You keep tracing it back. There has to be something at the beginning of time. God is like the watchmaker who made everything at the beginning of time that now it just keeps going. So that's the one argument that we can have for God's existence according to Voltaire. Final causality. There has to be a cause that made every other effect that is. He said that just in the same way that the watch is made by an intelligent being to mark time, so too nature must have been made by an intelligent creator. Look at the watch. Must have been made by someone. Oh, you're right. Look at the universe. Must have been made by someone. Oh, you're right. That's the only proof for God's existence, according to Voltaire. Now it gets a little difficult for believing Christians. If you want to leave, I won't be offended. Voltaire said, "The soul is an unnecessary hypothesis." Those of you who believe in a soul, where did that come from? Okay? Because when we were children, they told us that there's body and there's soul, and that your soul has a body. Okay. Empiricism, have you ever seen your soul? Have you seen your soul? Smelled it? Tasted it? Touched it? Have you ever heard your soul? How do you know your soul exists? Voltaire said, your soul doesn't exist. You don't have a soul. A soul is an unnecessary hypothesis. The only thing that we believe in are those things that we get through the senses. He was a good empiricist. Right? Rationalists, on the other hand, come up with arguments for the soul. Because even though you can't see it, right? Rationalists are we're going to close our ears and eyes anyways and think about it. If you think about it, then there's probably something within our body that keeps us alive. Let's call it soul. Not rationalists. For Voltaire, the soul is an unnecessary hypothesis. It can only be known by faith. In fact, he said the word soul was invented to cover our ignorance. You don't know why you're alive? Scientists are coming with all sorts of discoveries all the time. You don't need a soul to explain why you're alive today. This was the beginning of science, and how it was that science and religion were beginning to conflict. Voltaire also said, we need to write history in a philosophical spirit, that is, without dogmatic presuppositions or legends or fairy tales. Right? Read some ancient stories of the world, ancient histories. They'll give you all sorts of legends and fairy tales and all sorts of stories of monsters and gods and goddesses and you name it. Okay. If we were to write history today, we wouldn't have to be writing about all sorts of fairy tales and legends, right? So that really calls us to think about our own history, especially some of the fairy tales and legends that we've heard about. Things like a flood that wiped out the whole entire earth, the world. That's not a story that's just in the Bible. That was a story that was shared by many cultures. They believed in these sorts of tales. Okay, what do we do with that? Do we continue to teach our children and grandchildren that a flood wiped out the entire world? Do we mean that it happened like a historic event? Or is there some other lesson that we're trying to teach through that? So for Voltaire then, supernatural revelations should be left out. Supernatural revelation meaning if a god or a goddess or someone from the other world, which can't be proved, if God or someone from the other world tries to talk to you, we can leave that out. The example in Greece was the Oracle of Delphi. Okay, you go to the Oracle of Delphi and you get a message. Okay? Or the Bible. Oh, someone got a message from God and wrote it down. Okay, we're leaving all that out. Just because Deacon Cleophas went to the Oracle of Delphi and the Oracle of Delphi told him whatever it told him, that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of us. Just because God came to Deacon Cleophas and said, write this down in the Bible and share it with everyone, that was for Deacon Cleophas. That doesn't have to apply to all of us. Supernatural revelation, then, we're leaving it all out. He said, ancient history mixes a few truths with 1,000 lies. That one hurts. Mixes a few truths with 1,000 lies. And then how do we explain the lies? Well, how did the flood wipe out the whole entire world? And only Noah and his wife and his sons were saved? Okay, so like, where did all the different races come from on this world? You follow me? Well, and then, like, there were only 2 of each animal on there and no animals then, I mean, history contains, these ancient history contains a few truths, but 1,000 lies. This enlightenment was a challenge for the church. For those of us in the church who are looking to the Bible as our source, people like Voltaire were very dangerous. He said the Middle Ages are of no interest to us. Why study the Middle Ages? Just study the world today. He said the world of the ancient Jews was so different from ours. Jesus lived in such a different world. What can we learn from that? They had their own customs, their own language, their own laws. Leave it in the past, but to learn from today's world. So he was an advocate for studying the modern world and its laws.
That's a quick question. Not just on Voltaire, but on all the philosophers. You know, they're saying that the Bible, well, like you were saying that the earth is the one that moves around the sun.
Crazy, I know.
Okay.
Crazy.
Then they're saying, well then, how do they go back? Where did they stand on some of the stuff in the Bible that someone lived 1,000 years when they just realized that the earth is the one moving around?
Fables. Methuselah lived 600 some years. Fable. Jesus walked on water. Love that story. Fable. Follow me? Multiplied bread to feed 5,000 people. Really? It's difficult. We're going to see the church. I mean, the accusation is that the church is still in the dark ages. Follow me? The Enlightenment, the light is going on. Where's the church? Is the church leading the Enlightenment, lighting the fire?
Where's the church to defend itself?
Where's the church to defend itself?
Yeah.
How do you defend it? Father Vincent, I, Voltaire, the philosopher, am telling you that your religion is made up of fables. Jesus walking on water, let's go out to the lake and let's see you walk on water. And when you walk on water, you'll be defending your faith. Are we ready? All of that simply to say, how do you defend this? As a person in the church, when we're seeing all these discoveries being made of the world, how do you respond to that? How do you respond to that? Apart from looking at one another and saying, dang, Father Vincent, they may be onto something. But we can't tell people we're living in the dark ages. So I suspect our response is going to be to fight back against them and to say, no, we have the truth, and the truth is God made the world in 7 days, etc., etc., etc. Listen to us, don't listen to them.
Heretic.
But what's going to happen then? We become less and less relevant, and everyone starts looking to them and to their science and saying, you know what, I think they're onto something.